Bridging the Gap's inclusive response to the COVID-19 pandemic. The COVID-19 pandemic has been affecting all aspects of our daily lives. Working, studying, relating with others is nowadays harder and more dangerous than it used to be. To cope with the pandemic and resurge from it, Bridging the Gap has adapted both its work style and work plan. On the one hand, accessible online communication and dissemination mechanisms have been strengthened also through dedicated staff training. On the other, specific initiatives have been put in place to ensure the continuity of the project and the reinforcement of the inclusive response to the emergency. Several activities were converted to the online format, such as all the training activities on inclusive education for Ecuadorian teachers, thus also raising awareness about digital accessibility. Still in Ecuador, Bridging the Gap strengthened the Communication and Mediation Centre for Deaf Persons to meet the growing demand during the lockdown. Inclusive communication was also facilitated in Ethiopia, where Amharic and Somali easy-to-read COVID-19 prevention guidelines were produced and distributed, and in Sudan, through a multi-platform communication campaign on antivirus measures. In Burkina Faso, personal protective equipment was produced and distributed among persons with disabilities and their organisations, and in Paraguay, Bridging the Gap facilitated a rapid assessment on inclusion in the government's response to the pandemic, pushing for an ever-growing consideration of persons with disabilities in medical emergencies. Although inevitably limited, Bridging the Gap's activities have been serving a greater interest to keep high the attention on the vulnerability of persons with disabilities, arguably COVID's most severely affected group. Guaranteeing a rights-based, inclusive response to the pandemic and its aftermaths is paramount to ensure we build back better, more just and open societies. Alas, the emergency is not over yet, and Bridging the Gap will continue working to combat inequalities by leading the European commitment for the inclusion of persons with disabilities as an active part of Team Europe's efforts. This video was produced with the financial support of the European Union. Its contents are the sole responsibility of Bridging the Gap and do not necessarily reflect the views of the European Union.